And the one thing about the coronavirus quarantine is everybody now knows about their kids' education. That's never happened before. So from that could come some really important things, I think.
Governor, since the situation really started unfolding in earnest in March, schools closed, the country shifted to this footing that we're on now. When it comes to schools, what are you seeing that's most heartening to you, and what do you feel best about?
The most disappointing thing would be that there are some school districts that are resourced enough to provide education, but it's said that if they can't provide it to everyone, they're not going to provide it to anyone. And that's deeply disappointing because that's deeply pessimistic. I think in a crisis, you want people to rise up and to think differently and to take it as an opportunity to be better. What's encouraging is many school districts have done just that. I'm proud to be a resident of Miami-Dade County, where I think it's the 4th largest school district in the United States, had trained for going online to be able to provide education. That's because we get hurricanes here. I don't know if you know that, Andy, but that's one of the reasons why they train for it. But it's been, they've provided access to devices, and by and large, the great majority of students are accessing education. Teachers have been trained on it. Students with special needs have been given attention. And that's the kind of response you'd like to see across the board.
What's your take on the administration's response so far on education and just more generally?
Well, education, they play a completely supportive role. These decisions about how to teach, how to keep schools open, when they're going to open, the form in which they open, those should be decided in concert with local school districts and state governments. The governor has this emergency power, and you can see how governors are very effective. They're all in. They're showing the kind of servant leadership that you would expect. I don't think we need to over-rely on Washington. It's great to have the resources because only the federal government, with its massive power to print money, can deal with some of these significant financial challenges that districts across the country will have. But let's let 1,000 flowers bloom. Let's try innovative approaches across the board. What might work in Miami-Dade County is not going to work in rural Virginia, for example. For some reason, we're in this era where everybody is focused on DC. They obsess about the White House, they obsess about the Trump, they obsess about the president more than anything else. And I don't think that serves us well in this kind of challenge.
Thinking about school accountability, and there's testing has been paused this year. There's now already murmurs about efforts to pause testing next year. So how should they be thinking about this and juggling the various pressure on them?
2004, Hurricane Charley wiped out Southwest Florida. It was a Cat 4 storm. Charlotte County, DeSoto County, these counties that were dramatically impacted were shut they didn't have classes for at least 3 months. They came back, and of course the call was, it's not fair, we shouldn't have accountability, we shouldn't have the test, our kids are stressed out. And I said, no, I think we need to have accountability. I think children will rise to the challenge, and I know teachers will as well. And interestingly, the districts that were most impacted by the storm were the ones that had the best gains based on our accountability system. And so I would hope that accountability stays. Ultimately, it'd be wonderful to move to a system that is where the learning is blended, where time is the variable and learning's the constant, where you're learning at home and in the classroom, and where teachers are the coaches of student learning, and where students are more responsible for their own learning. In that environment, you would have a very different kind of assessment model and accountability model. But it would be a far better one because you wouldn't push kids along that hadn't mastered the material and excuse it away for life circumstances. And you wouldn't hold kids back that could learn faster. So maybe out of this devastating situation that is so impactful for so many people, maybe we'll start thinking freshly about how we actually organize schools in general.
You've been governor of a state that gets more than its share of natural disasters and so unexpected shutdowns of public services and so forth. Other lessons from that experience that would inform what's happening now?
Well, the lessons of training is important. We're going to go into a fall with lots of uncertainty. Teachers are being asked to teach in different ways now. There could be an outbreak, as normally is the case with viruses in general. And how do you respond to that? You need to be thinking about that both community leaders as well as obviously school leaders. And the lesson is that you train for this. Schools need to do a lot more of that, and teachers need to receive more training on the kind of teaching that is essential when there's not 20 kids in front of you in a classroom. So teacher development days off to be able to train for the unforeseen, I think, is really important going forward.
When it comes to education, what would your advice be to a politician who wants to succeed in the state of Florida with Florida voters?
There's an opportunity here with these stimulus packages to be able to deal with some of the gaps that exist. The digital divide is one of those that should be eradicated out of this. There's all sorts of other benefits beyond education, but education primarily, that would be a worthy aspiration. Only the federal government could do that in partnership with the states.
Through this crisis, if we get education right, what does it look like? If we don't get it right, what is the worst case scenario for our kids?
If we don't get it right, we'll end up doing the same thing we've been doing, which will mean that we'll have huge learning gaps between those that are gaining the power of knowledge and those that are being left behind. If we do get it right, we'll have a system that is student-centered, harnessing technology, where students reach their God-given potential each and every year, and where kids that can take college credit in high school do so, and kids that are struggling readers learn how to read and understand math. We move away from this remediation model to a model where every young person is capable of gaining a career or going to college.
Are you going to endorse in 2020?
I don't know. Haven't figured that out yet.
So the second part of that, but you're not going to endorse today.
No.
All right, thanks. Be well. Stay healthy.
Yeah,
Thanks, Governor.